Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 69, featuring the top 5 Nog episodes. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Morehouse, and I am the host of the TrekRanks podcast. And tonight's episode is a little bit of a tough one. We've decided to insert this topic into our rotation that we've been planning for the last few months, coming off this really sad news about the passing of the great Aron Eisenberg recently in September 2019. So by this time, there's been a lot, hundreds of condolences and remembrances of Aron and his work, and we've heard a lot of great podcasts about it, and really just how hard-hitting his death has been inside the Star Trek community. So what we're going to try and do tonight is just have a celebration. It's a celebration of Aron. It's a celebration of his work and really what he gave to all of us and his portrayal of Nog. I'm going to get emotional talking about it a couple of times because we all know what this character meant to Star Trek and meant to all of us. So it's just this is a celebration of Nog, and we are doing our top 5 Nog episodes here on TrekRanks tonight. So with that, let's introduce our guests for tonight's show. First up, returning for his long overdue second go around on TrekRanks is our friend Carl Wonders, who was previously on episode 13, our top 5 gory moments. Welcome, Carl. Great to have you back, man.
Hey, Jim. How's it going? Thanks for having me back. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm excited. Good to fit you back in and get you on the show.
Sorry for the reason for the show, but it's still going to be worth doing, I think. Yeah,
for sure. This is a celebration, and joining us to be a part of that as well as our second guest is making his debut on TrekRanks, and he's been heard previously on TrekRanks because he left us a great voicemail with his top 5 road trips that you might have heard on episode 63 when we did our top 5 costumes. And we always say, if you take the time to leave us a voicemail, we're going to want to probably get you on the show. So we're doing that today with Jonathan, who is Jonfucius online. Welcome to the show, Jonathan. Glad to have you on, man.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Jim. This is a real treat for me, even given the subject matter.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to get you on. I really appreciate you taking the time send us that great voicemail. And let's get to this because everyone knows for our first time guests, we like to get a quick Trek origin story just to get kind of your Trek backstory and how you got into Trek and whether you're a completist or not. What's your Trek backstory?
So I've been a Trek fan, and I know a lot of people say this, but I really mean it as long as I can remember. I was probably 4 or 5 years old when I first saw an episode of TNG, and I've been in love with the franchise ever since. I am a completist, and I'm working my way back through the series, the franchise, start to finish now. I'm in the middle of Enterprise Season 3.
Season 4 coming up. Sorry, I have to do that. It's contractual. I have to do that. So what's your favorite series on this day? What is your favorite series?
Well, on this day, and given the research I've been doing, DS9 is probably my favorite top to bottom. But I have a soft spot for every series. There's something I really enjoy about each one.
Yeah. And by the way, I'll say I've been enjoying your Twitter rewatch recaps of season 3 of Enterprise, and because I pretty much agree with you. I mean, there's some tough ones in there, but I think we've been pretty close on everything in terms of how you've been looking at it. It's really cool.
Well, thank you. Yeah, as I've said at one point, I said I do enjoy Enterprise and all of it on the balance. There's just a few stinkers here and there. But
when you have to watch Extinction, you have to watch Extinction. It's part of a rewatch.
Yeah, and I had to do that the other night. So,
All right, this is TrekRanks. We don't talk about that. I'm pretty sure that's the first time Extinction maybe has come up on our show. No, maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. All right, let's get into our TrekRanks recalibration.
What are you recalibrating?
Everything. It's a sweeping, a recalibration of all systems.
As regular listeners will know by now, general order number one here at the TrekRanks podcast that we love Trek and we love to rank Trek via some deep dive topics just to get the conversation started, because my favorite thing to do is to talk about Star Trek.
But what is that Vulcan motto? Infinite diversity.
In infinite combinations.
And what is diversity? A celebration of differences.
And as T'Pol and Dr. Phlox just said, TrekRanks is basically just a big old celebration of differences. There are no wrong answers here. It's not about being right or definitive in any way. It's just about sharing the things that we love about Star Trek. So we love it all, from TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise and the Kelvin timeline, and now Discovery and short treks as well. It's all fair game here on the TrekRanks podcast.
Open hailing frequencies. Hailing frequencies open. On viewer.
And you can find TrekRanks on the net access interface links at TrekRanks.com. And you can contact me directly on Twitter at TrekRanks or at Enterprise Extra. And you can also call and leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. At 609-512-5527. Jonathan did it, and now he's on the show. So you should do it too. Send us your picks. Okay, so to wrap it up, Carl and Jonathan, why don't you guys let everyone know how they can get a hold of you on the net access interface? Carl.
You can probably find me the best on Twitter. I am at Listening to Film. I also have a blog at listeningtofilm.net, and occasionally will be poking around the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas convention group on Facebook, although I'm not very good at Facebook, so Twitter is probably the best way to get a hold of me.
I'm also not very good on Facebook. And you can hear more about Carl on the recent Trek Profiles, or a recent Trek Profiles, which I have not listened to yet because it just dropped in the last week. But I'm looking forward to that one. So, check out our friends at the Trek Profiles podcast as well. Jonathan, how about you, man?
The easiest way to get a hold of me is also on Twitter. I'm at Jonfucius online. That's like Confucius, but with a J.
I knew that.
And yeah, just you can look me up on there.
A couple of great Trek follows on Twitter. All right, let's jump into our level 1 diagnostic and get into this great topic today.
Diagnostic Cycle will be complete in 20 seconds.
So for our character episodes, we like to ask our guests to give us one word that they think best describes the character that we're talking about. And today we know it is Nog, played by the great Aron Eisenberg. So it's just a quick way for us to get a feel for how everyone's looking at this character. So let's start with Carl. What's your one word that you would use to describe Nog?
Well, this one took a bit of thinking, and the word I eventually came up with was unconventional. And the reason I did that was, we first meet him in Emissary, the first episode, and he's kind of up to no good, doing what we would expect a Ferengi type character to be doing, breaking into an area and stealing stuff and getting caught and all that. But, as we get to know him early on in the show, he's a Ferengi who becomes best friends with a human. He goes to school that's taught by Keiko O'Brien. He hangs out with Jake all the time, and he kind of actually needs Jake around for his various Ferengi-type shenanigans. He's not naturally inclined to do these Ferengi-type things that we would expect a Quark-type character to do necessarily. And then, over the course of the show, we find out he's not really into this whole Latinum Prophet idea. He actually wants to go into Starfleet. He has a dream of becoming a better person than what he is, which is rather atypical, I would say, for a Ferengi. He does go to Starfleet. He becomes a cadet. He actually becomes a commissioned officer, but he actually never really loses that connection to being a Ferengi. So he's kind of walking two sides throughout the entire show, where he is a Starfleet officer who acts like a Starfleet officer, but he also does things in a Ferengi type way. And we might get into that down the road with some of these picks, but he's not being taken seriously by certain members of the Federation. He's not being taken seriously by Quark, who doesn't understand why in the world he would go to Starfleet. And, I think to me, he actually represents one of the best character arcs we've ever seen in Star Trek.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that has to do both with the writing, but then, Aron's wonderful performance, that he injects so much nuance into a character that the first time we see him, he's really kind of a fairly two-dimensional, brat basically. But to go from that to somebody who goes through all the experience he goes through is just an amazing testament to both his performance and what the writing staff did with him.
I love that word. Unconventional is really, really good. And you touched on this. It's one of the things I discovered kind of watching this, or don't think I kind of realized or connected the dots on, was how much he uses his Ferengi-ness in his Starfleet. It's amazing. I love that. That's a great word and a great summation of his character and his amazing character arc. So, Jonathan, how about you, man? What's your word?
Carl actually touched on a lot of the things I wanted to discuss with my word. I picked the word adroit because he's...
Oh, that's a good one.
He really is.
Because he's cunning. He's crafty. Nog just has this way about him to... And you'll see in some of my picks how he's always one step ahead of the audience and the other characters that you don't really see until the very end.
Yeah, that's really well said. He is clever. He's adroit. That is so good. So for me, I struggled with this because it was hard to think of a word that summarized him. You guys have amazing because both of those are fantastic. I love it. So I cheated, and my word is yes. So yeah, I cheated. That was Nog saying yes, because when I kept thinking about one word and Nog, I could not move off of that reaction that he does so consistently through all of his appearances. And I love it. It means so much to me when every time he does it, it's just the perfect tone, perfect delivery. Aron Eisenberg, just amazing in that delivery. And I just think that he's got so much impact in the show. He touched on so many characters with his relationship with O'Brien and his relationship with Jake and Ben Sisko, who he obviously looked up to and was counted as a mentor, and with the stuff with Martok, who grudgingly grew to respect him. The moments with Worf, I love that moment when Kira says, "Did the kid just cover for him?" And yeah, he did, because he's Nog and he's awesome, and Rom and Quark, and he's so impactful on everything that happened in this series. It's just amazing when you think about where he started and his character arc, which we've talked a lot about on this show, and we're going to get into here. So yeah, I cheated, and I just went with the Nog saying yes. All right. So a final reminder as part of our diagnostic cycle, just remember that we say this all the time when we do these character episode topics, that it's also, it's episodes, but it could be a single moment in an episode too. So you might pick an episode that's all about that character. You might just pick one moment. Anything's up for grabs as how you define this. So, all right, let's jump into our Prime Directives.
I do not concur with your captain's decision.
She's following our Prime Directive.
Define Prime Directive.
In terms of our Prime Directive, this is a pretty finite number of appearances for a recurring character like Nog. And this is the first time we've done a top 5 episode for a recurring character. So overall, Aron Eisenberg made 44 appearances on Deep Space Nine as Nog. So that is our canvas to choose from tonight. So Carl, starting with you, how did you narrow down your picks and come up with your list?
Boy, this was a hard one, and I actually commented a couple times on Twitter about this. As you mentioned, Nog is not a main character in the show. He's a recurring character. And his appearances, he appeared in, you said 40-some episodes, but they're sprinkled all over the place. And I was having these times where I would sit down and I would think of a moment, but have no idea what episode it was off the top of my head, because right. So many of his great moments are not A-plot moments, and sometimes they're not even B-plot moments. And that was one of the great things about the show, I think, was that it was able to weave these little threads throughout the story, which is, great when you're watching a show. It's not so great when you have to pick out the top 5 moments of a character like this.
Takes a little more research.
Right. And then, so I realized that, a lot of his best scenes, not all of them, but some of them are in these episodes that have very little to do with Nog. Or in at least one case on my list, they're not that good of an episode overall, but they have a great moment in there that speaks to Nog. So I have a couple on my short list that, fit into that category. So what I really kind of focused on were moments or episodes that had a lot of great interactions with other characters. And Jim, you touched on this when you mentioned his relationships that he builds with these different characters. And I wanted to find something that highlighted, a relationship or some growth that Nog had as a character or a person. And there were a few pretty good scenes and episodes, I think, that ended up pushed down to my secondary systems just because I felt they were more about another character that was in the scene with him where he was reacting to something, or, it was more of a Ben Sisko scene or a Jake scene rather than a Nog scene. So that's really what I did. And I ended up, skimming through. I can't tell you how many episodes trying to find the right moments to pull out.
I'm so sorry we made you do that. TrekRanks homework. We love TrekRanks homework.
It's the best kind of homework, though.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I love that because there's some of that we'll kind of touch on where I'm at. But you're spot on that there were moments where it's like, wait, what episode was that from? And you had to figure it out. Okay, Jonathan, how about you, man? How did you break down your list?
So when I first got the assignment, I was like, oh, Nog was only in 44 episodes. And then once I sat down to look at it, it's like he was in 44 episodes. So there's a lot to pick through there.
It actually is. It's more than you think. It's a lot.
It's a good chunk of DS9's 176 episodes.
Yep.
So I ended up really not, at least when I first wrote up my picks, I didn't really have a specific directive in mind until after I was done. But then it all came clear once I finished writing up my thoughts and looked back at the list and ranked everything. They're not really in strict chronological order, but they do kind of follow a pattern. Nog was a very richly detailed character. As you all said earlier, he went from, a ne'er-do-well to the finest example of Starfleet and the finest example of his species.
Well said.
And just with my picks too, because he and Jake were so intertwined, especially in the early seasons, we're going to see a lot of Jake Sisko in my picks.
All right. That's cool. I was pretty similar here. You just mentioned something about chronological, and that's something I've never done before on TrekRanks, but I am doing it tonight. And I will say I found out as I was going through this, I did pick moments much more than I did episodes, which I usually don't do. I did it on the Kirk episode, which is our episode 0, where I did more straight moments. This one, I just found myself drawn to these kind of little small moments of the character, and I put them in chronological because I think there's a narrative here in my 5 picks that I was really happy with when it just kind of emerged, because it's like you said, Jonathan, I was just kind of picking things I liked and then saw this pattern and said, all right, that's my prime directive. I'm doing that. So I might miss some of the bigger episodes, but we'll talk about some great moments. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see if we have any duplicates tonight. I'm sure somewhere we'll have some crisscross, at least on episodes, if not the specific talking points of that episode. Okay, this is great, guys. Let's jump into the order of things with Third Ramadaclon.
I am a Jem'Hadar. He is a Vorta. It is the order of things.
Thank you, Third Ramadaclon. And as always, just a quick reminder on how we're going to go through the order of things. First, each of us will reveal our 5-word summary and a hashtag to tease our pick. Then we'll let you know our Nog episode title and the moments that we want to highlight from that episode and why it made our list. And at the end, we will ask everyone for a few secondary system selections for the picks that just missed our list. And as always, if we have any duplicate picks, make sure you listen for the Defiant Torpedoes. Okay, Carl, let's kick this off with you. What's your number 5 pick for your top 5 Nog episodes?
All right. So, Jim, you actually hinted at this first one with one of your comments earlier. So 5 words and a hashtag. Brave, stupid, little of both, hashtag regulation 82/7B. And it's the scene where Nog stands up to Martok in Blaze of Glory, which is season 5, episode 23.
Yeah.
For a couple of episodes prior to this, there's a scene on the Defiant where Nog's trying to work with Worf, and Martok comes in and basically stands over him and basically ignores that Nog is even there.
Yeah.
And Nog takes this to heart, and he spends much of the B plot of Blaze of Glory kind of groaning and moaning about how the Klingons don't take him seriously. This is at a point where he's a cadet back on the station, and he wants to stand up to him, and Martok comes in and kicks him out of dinner with Ben and Jake.
Yeah.
And and then later on he's in Quarks, and he's watching these Klingons headbutt each other because that's what Klingons do. And he says, "Oh, well, 5 more decibels and I can cite them for noise violation." And he ends up tripping over his own chair and falls on the ground and just kind of lays there embarrassed. But eventually he's walking the promenade, and he sees Martok and some other Klingons hanging around on their favorite spot up on the 2nd level. And he's had enough, and he goes up and cites regulation 82/7B and says he's loitering and has to move on. And there's a great scene where Martok bends over because he's so much taller than Nog is, and says, you're either brave or or stupid. And Nog says a little bit of both. And that just, for whatever reason, earns Martok's respect. And he says, yeah, well, he looks at his compatriots and says, "Courage comes in many sizes, but don't test me." And they leave. And that builds to that wonderful scene at the very end of the episode with when he's with Kira, and they step out of the turbo lift, and they just look at each other and say, "General, cadet," and they just part ways. And it's
good.
Just a display of respect that was never there before. So it's just a wonderful little beat that I think says a lot about his interactions with some of the other members of the group there on the station.
I love this moment. I love that bit of physical comedy. Some of the best in Trek history, when he falls over in his chair. It always makes me laugh.
Yeah.
And Aron Eisenberg just kills it. Absolutely sells it.
Yeah.
This is a great one. I'm so glad you picked it. I definitely thought about it. It's Nog being Nog and part of his progression. Jonathan, what's your take on this Blaze of Glory?
Oh, that is one of the quintessential Nog scenes, and I'm really mad it didn't make my top 5. But every time I see that episode and see that scene, it's just a great, well written little, not even a Z plot, not even the A or the B plot in the episode. Just that final grudging respect that Martok gives Nog speaks volume about Nog's development over the course of the show.
Yeah, no, that's pretty great. But I think it actually is is it the whole B plot? Just Nog?
Yeah, it pretty much is. Because, there's so much going on with Cisco and Eddington that there isn't much room for,
It's not like the shared A-B plot story. Sometimes they have like almost equal driven stories. This was, obviously the A plot was 80% of this episode, but it was a funny, it's more of like a filler plot when we really boil it down.
Such good filler.
But it's so good.
Yeah,
it's such
absolutely.
it's the character development. Love it.
Just a great moment.
All right, Jonathan, how about you, man? What's your number 5 pick?
So my number 5 pick is from an episode that I don't think a lot of people think about when they think about great DS9 episodes or even maybe great Nog episodes, but I really like it. My 5-word summary is The Odd and Even Days, # Domjot Jimrat, Season 5's The Ascent.
Yes. When he comes back to the station, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it's a fun little play on the Odd Couple format with Jake and Nog.
Yeah.
But now they're starting to see each other as adults for the first time. But at this point in the series, their friendship has been so carefully developed by the writers and by Sirach Lofton and Aron Eisenberg. That even though that there's going to be this conflict, they're going to work it out eventually. I think the best moment in the whole plot is actually at the very end when Cisco says, "Okay, you and Jake, we're going to lock you in the room. We're not going to let you out until you figure this out."
Yeah.
And it's just a great little evolution of Jake and Nog's friendship.
This is one of those episodes that when it came on and here you're seeing Nog again, and it's like, wow, Nog is still around. They're actually like, this is going to be something they just continue to keep doing. And when they had kind of the switch of his character, so now he's like the studious, super responsible, kind of officious guy as it relates to Jake. Love that. Hilarious. Such a great little switch that was so surprising to see.
Yeah, and he sells that officious, self-important air, but it doesn't come across as a parody. Like it's a natural evolution.
Correct. That's actually what I'll be talking about too. That's awesome. Carl, what's your take on The Ascent?
It's such a great pick. It was one of the episodes that I thought of. I'm kicking myself for not including it on my list now, because I love your comment about how it's sort of the odd couple in space, because it truly is where and just the whole reversal of Jake being the quote unquote messy one, and to go back to the 5 words and a hashtag where are we going to clean every day? And he's like, no, just the odd and even ones. I think I love that little exchange there with the two of them, and it even carries through later when, back to the Blaze of Glory episode right before they go up to Martok, and Jake's basically complaining that Nog walked in on him with a girl. So they're still having that feeling out period with each other throughout different little bits that are dropped in here. But I love The Ascent just as an episode period, and definitely as a good example of the Nog relationship with Jake.
It was a great way to reintroduce Nog to the station, for sure. Really
smart.
Absolutely. Yeah. Really smart from the writers. Okay, let's go to my number 5 pick. My 5 words and a hashtag. You did good work today. Hashtag yes. And it is the Jem'Hadar from Deep Space Nine Season 2. And it's Nog and Jake working together on their science project. And the moment that I'm picking is this moment where they're just down there working. They're digging into their soil samples and doing their analysis of this planet in the Gamma Quadrant. And Sisko, they're kind of giving Sisko the update on what they've learned and what they're going to do the next day. And Sisko just says, you guys did good work today. Let's go have dinner. And when you see the expression on Nog's face and his reaction to this, he is so happy. He's found that there's something more for him. And for me, I've kind of put as a sub note here that he's learning that, there's going to be more options for him out there. There's more that he can do than just be your quote unquote standard Ferengi. And I love that moment. I love him in this episode, him trying to embrace other cultures and sciences and knowledge. And it's a really key stepping point for me in his amazing story arc. So, Carl, how about you, man? What's your take on the Jem'Hadar?
This is another great one. I like how early on in the episode, you don't expect Nog to be the one that's going to be all excited about doing soil samples and things like that. Where he wants to fire the phasers
that's right.
And, but
even then, you get the feeling he wants to fire the phasers because he wants to just learn how to do it. He's
Absolutely.
like so excited. At the beginning, he's so excited just to be in the cockpit of the runabout. Like, wow, I can see this.
And this is really, I think, the start of when he realizes that this is kind of what he wants to do with his life. He wants to become a Starfleet officer, more like the humans, and move away from the typical the Ferengi way of life. And as you said, embracing the human food and rather than eating Ferengi bugs like Quark would prefer to do. So yeah, it's definitely a key stepping point along his journey. I would say to from where he starts out to where he ends up in the show. So great choice.
Yeah, Jonathan, how about you, man? What's your take on the Jem'Hadar?
Oh, it's a great episode, start to finish. But what you're just saying about it's the first spark of Nog making that journey from uber capitalist to Starfleet exemplar.
Yeah,
especially the scenes like where Quark's whining, complaining, "Oh, my ears, give me the ointment." You can tell how disappointed Nog is that he brought Quark along on his science project.
Yeah.
And I totally relate to that scene too, where he's so excited to learn about the runabout. I'm an Air Force brat, and any chance I got to climb around an airplane, I totally am with Nog on that scene. I just want to learn how to do it.
Yeah, and there's also. It's not like they fully formed him, because there's also these scenes at the end where he is freaking out, like, "Yeah, get us out of here, phasers, computer, run. I mean, it was love those moments.
But he's also it also shows that for all of his bravado, he's also still a 14.
Yep,
I'm going to say 14-year-old because that's how old Jake was.
Yeah, however old he is, but he's still a kid. He's a kid.
He's still a kid.
Computer, fly us back to the station.
Please restate command.
Computer, disengage autopilot and lay in a course back to the wormhole.
Enter authorization code.
Go ahead. What are you waiting for? I don't know the authorization code.
Vessel approaching from the planet's surface. Bearing 173, Mark 281.
Computer! Evasive maneuvers! Fire phasers! Launch torpedoes! And escape pods!
Okay, let's go to round 4. Carl, what's your number 4 pick, man?
All right. So round 4, 5 words. Whisper your way to success. # his name is Edgar. And it's basically the secondary plot of Treachery, Faith, and the Great River, season 7, episode 6. And this is kind of what I was getting at earlier when I mentioned that despite the fact that Nog is now a Starfleet officer, he's still a Ferengi. And he's going to bring his Ferengi instincts to bear to solve a problem, even if that problem is one that is a Starfleet problem and that he ultimately needs to solve within the confines of being in Starfleet. Here at the beginning of the episode, O'Brien needs to fix the graviton stabilizer on the Defiant, but he doesn't have a replacement. And he's having trouble with the requisitions officer. He's kind of low on the priority, and Nog offers to help. And he goes around and kind of buddies up to Edgar, the requisitions officer, and sets up this elaborate scheme that anyone who's read Catch-22, he basically goes Milo Minderbinder on everybody.
Yes.
And he concocts this giant pyramid scheme involving blood wine and an induction modulator, a phaser emitter, and gives Sisko's desk to Al Lorenzo, whoever he is, so he can take his photo with it. And all the while trying to assuage O'Brien by talking about the great material continuum and how everything is going to come to them if they need it and if they navigate the river successfully. Meanwhile, he's tricked O'Brien into giving him his access code, so that's how he's able to steal the desk and steal a runabout and steal Martok's blood wine. But at the end of the day, he's still a Starfleet officer, and he puts everything back the way it was, or in the case of the blood wine, even makes it better because he gets a better vintage for Martok than the one that his wife sent him. So I think it's a great example of the two cultures of Nog basically coming together and coexisting in a way that solves a problem that couldn't be solved either with just one of them separately. It requires both the Starfleet and the Ferengi components to work.
Yep, that's one of the great ways to define this, and I love that Ferengi element of him doing his work. And Chief, I can't operate under those kinds of restrictions.
That's right.
Love that moment. This is one of the most popular episodes on TrekRanks over the last few years, and part of that is because of Nog. And man, we love Nog.
I can get you that stabilizer, Chief.
In 3 days?
Leave everything to me.
All right. But don't do anything I wouldn't do.
Chief, I can't operate under those kinds of restrictions.
At least promise me you won't do anything to get us court-martialed.
I'll try.
Nog!
Just kidding, Chief.
Jonathan, what's your take on Treachery, Faith, and the Great River?
This is just one of my favorite DS9 episodes. Probably my top 15.
Yeah.
The A and the B plot, they just work great. But for me, the best part is Nog and O'Brien's journey to the graviton stabilizer.
Yeah.
Even if O'Brien's barely hanging on for dear life. Yeah, it wouldn't have worked if Nog wasn't a Ferengi, because he'd never buy that a Starfleet officer in this enlightened 24th century would do such a thing. Like steal Sisko's desk.
Right.
Hey, he just lent it to Al Lorenzo. Okay. Yeah. That's a great way to put it too, because if they did try to write something like this for a Starfleet officer, you'd be like, what are they doing? That's really great. And natural, of course, because it's Ferengi-ness. Jonathan, how about you, man? What's your number 4 pick?
So my number 4 pick just came to my list about an hour before we started recording. It kept calling to me on my secondary systems list, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. 5-word summary is: let history make the judgments. # looking for martyrdom. Season 6, episode 22, Valiant.
Oh, cool! I did not pick this, but I'm so glad you did, because this is a straight up Nog episode.
Oh, it's top to bottom. It's Nog, and it starts off Nog and Jake, and then it goes fully. We're just following it from Nog's perspective for the last half.
Mm-hmm.
After they stash Jake in the brig. I think it's a very important episode for Nog's development as a young officer, because he finally learns that phrases and words like esprit de corps and duty and sacrifice, they all sound nice, but they don't mean anything if the people who you're looking up to are bad leaders and bad people. He gets involved with this Red Squad team that's way over their heads.
Yeah,
and he learns, unfortunately, the cost of these young cadets' lives, except for the other cadet whose name escapes me, even though I just watched the episode an hour ago.
Shepard or the captain?
No, the female chief.
Oh, I can't remember her name.
But he learns a very important lesson, unfortunately, at the cost of all those people's lives.
Yeah, no doubt. But again, more amazing development for a character that they're giving a whole episode to, in season 6 of a series, which again shows you the impact of Nog. I enjoy this episode a lot. On one side, you can just kind of have fun with it. It's just a fun kind of adventure, standalone story that's cool. But it also, is really good character development for Nog and Jake in this one.
I mean, Jake's got their number from the start, but it takes Nog a little while to warm up to it.
And I also love how it connects all the way through with continuity from previous episodes. So, Carl, what's your take on Valiant?
I think this is a great pick. And on the advice of counsel, I have to withhold comment until later.
Okay, we will we will allow it for now. Okay, so let's move to my round 4 pick. 5 words and a #, unofficially official, introducing Cadet Nog, # root beer. It is from season 3, the episode Facets. And this is the episode where Rom introduces his son. And I get choked up thinking about this, because Nog passes his test to get into a preparatory course for Starfleet Academy. It's this one where the A story is Dax having her Gentara with all of her past hosts, but the B story is Nog taking this test. And at the end, when it's so moving, because Rom literally says he's yelling, he's coming, and everyone's in the bar waiting, and he excitedly introduces him literally as, "I'd like to introduce Starfleet's future, my son Nog." And I mean, when he takes that little beat and says and he's right. This is season 3 of Deep Space Nine. Starfleet's future is Nog, and it's so cool. It's such a great moment. I love everything involving Nog in this episode, and this scene after that introduction from Nog has everything in it. You've got excited Nog. You've got him doing his grin. You've got Cisco congratulating him. You've got, he's literally telling Nog, "Hey, you jumped the gun. I'm wearing this uniform." And he's like sheepishly apologizing. "I know, but it's for my father." You've got O'Brien in the corner playing darts, telling Julian that, "I'm going to have to call that kid sir someday."
Yep.
And then you have this moment where Nog steps up to the bar, and for the first time in Star Trek history, he orders a root beer, that root beer is mentioned on Star Trek. And that, is something that became kind of a thread through Deep Space Nine, all the references to root beer. And Quark walks away and says it's the end of Ferengi civilization. That's all in like 90 seconds, that scene. Yeah. It's absolutely incredible. And for me, in terms of my chronology, this is the episode where he takes this first big step on his way to being a member of Starfleet. And so I love it. I love that moment. It's an incredible 2 minutes of Trek and Nog. Carl, what's your take on Facets?
I love that you picked this episode. It's on my secondary systems, and the only reason I think it ended up there was, and I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, I kind of put it as more of a ROM episode than a Nog episode.
Yeah, it is,
because there are the great moments earlier in when Quark basically sabotages his test, and Ron goes up and stands up to him and says, I'm going to tell Captain Sisko what you did, and we're going to let him. We're going to let him take the test again. And he says, my son's happiness is more important than Latinum. And really one of the few times early on in the show that he stands up and basically gives Quark a piece of his mind. But I do love that last scene. You're absolutely right about how proud Nog is, and he's wearing the uniform a bit prematurely, but what have you. And I do love the O'Brien comment about calling him sir.
Yeah. There's
which kind of, it kind of comes up later when he keeps calling O'Brien sir, and that's not quite right. And I forget what episode it is when he's like, "Wait, if everyone on the bridge dies, does that mean I get to be called sir?" And O'Brien says, something along the lines of, "Well, there'll be nobody left to call you sir at that point." But
yeah, that's a great moment.
Yeah. But no, I love that last scene. So I'm really glad you highlighted it.
Yeah, that's why I picked it. You made a great point, because this is kind of the birth of ROM too, in terms of like the new ROM, where he's got his own agency on controlling his life, and he literally still. I mean, he says to Quark, "I will burn the bar down," and he meant it when he said that. Mm-hmm. That was really powerful. Jonathan, sorry man, what's your take on Facets?
This episode didn't even occur to me, because like you all said, it is really more of a ROM episode in a way. But yeah, that scene where he comes in and it's the future of Starfleet, and yeah, the Ferengi were kind of played for laughs in TNG, and they did a lot of rehab at this point in the series. But you think it's being played for laughs, but it's like, no, it's seriously, like, if you only knew what was coming in the next 4 seasons with Nog, you'd realize how prescient that comment was.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing.
It's just, that is just a great scene. And that scene at the end where Rom stands up to Quark, that's why he's the Grand Nagus.
Yes, that's so true.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So true.
Yeah.
He's not afraid to make that call. That's a great point, that introduction of him as the future, because at that point in time, it's season 3. You don't know that it's literally this character is going to actually go on and do all these great things, and it's not a joke. It's legitimate, and it's one of the strengths of Deep Space Nine. Amazing. Love it. Okay, let's go to the soup round. Carl, what's your round 3 pick for Nog?
So 5 words: careful what you wish for. # never meet your heroes. And this is season 6, episode 22, Valiant.
All right.
Yes.
So here we go on Valiant. So why did you pick Valiant? I love it.
So
never meet your heroes is great, because that's kind of what this is.
It really comes down to a lot of what Jonathan already said. But, Nog's been idolizing Red Squad ever since he was at the Academy, going back to the Homefront Paradise Lost 2-parter. And, he was talking about how he wants to be part of it, and he wants to kind of cozy up to some of the people and become friends with them and get welcomed in. And we get the sense that never really happened. And maybe Red Squad got disbanded after Admiral Layton got thrown in the brig, but who knows? So here they are. They get picked up by a ship that's commanded by Red Squad cadets. And, he solves one problem right away, even though he's kind of cribbing from something Chief O'Brien did. And all of a sudden now he's a lieutenant commander and he's chief of engineering. And the sense I always got from this episode was he just gets sucked right into this culture of we're the best of the best, even though they've never really had to prove it to anybody other than themselves. And there's that really kind of disturbing scene towards the end when Captain Waters has everyone gathered together and they're talking about going to destroy this Jem'Hadar battleship, and they all start chanting Red Squad, and Nog joins in with them, and Jake just gives him this look like, what are you doing? Like, these people are in over their heads. They don't know what they're doing. Everyone's going to get killed. And Nog wants nothing to do with any of Jake's concerns. He kicks him out of the torpedo room as he's working on the torpedo, and Jake ends up getting thrown in the brig. And it actually takes, the crew getting killed in front of him to realize, what a mistake he'd been making this whole time. And it allows Jake, and I looked it up, it's Chief Collins.
Yep, that's it.
Get into the shuttle or the escape pod and escape. And there's that great scene at the end that, Jonathan, that you alluded to in your 5 words and a hashtag, where, Jake's he's struggling with how to write this up and how to explain what happened. And Nog's perspective is that it was all Captain Waters' fault. And Chief Collins is saying, no, we failed him as a crew. And, Nog says, well, why don't you write it up both ways? Let people decide. But, ultimately in his mind, Waters, he might've been a hero, but he was not a good captain.
Yep.
And I just think it's really the moment where Nog grows up, so to speak, from being still a young, starry-eyed cadet to finally realizing what this Red Squad thing was all about. And he, the last bit is when he gives back the pin that he had earned, quote unquote.
Right. Oh yeah, that's such a great scene.
On the ship, he gives it back Collins because he doesn't want to have anything to do with this Red Squad thing anymore.
Captain Waters was a great man.
Dorian, he got everyone killed.
If he failed, it's because we failed him.
Put that in your story, too. Let people read it and decide for themselves. He may have been a hero. He may even have been a great man. But in the end, he was a bad captain.
Yeah.
And I just love that the way that is some sort of closure on the early Nog cadet / right when he immediately comes out of the academy.
Yep. I don't think you can sum it up any better than that. That last line is he may have been a hero, but he was a bad captain. So true, and a great Nog moment. Anything to add on this one, Jonathan?
No, I think Carl and I have covered that pretty clearly. I really want to harp on that last scene where he gives up that Red Squad pin. It really hits home. Really powerful moment.
And just because I forgot earlier, let's fire off let's fire those Valiant torpedoes. Okay, our first duplicate. Let's go to Jonathan. What's your round 3 pick?
Better keep those torpedoes primed.
Okay.
My 5-word summary is, and it's going to give it away, Willoughby, Lorenzo, Bloodwine, Desk, Stabilizer, hashtag coming through in the clutch. It's treachery, faith, and the Great River.
That's awesome. Awesome 5 words. So good. All right, so why did you pick it? I love it.
As I kind of alluded to when Carl picked it, it's just a great episode of Deep Space Nine. And even though it's kind of written, at least to me, kind of like a lighthearted O'Brien Must Suffer episode, it really belongs to me.
Okay, I've never thought about that as an O'Brien Must Suffer episode, but fair enough. It kind of is.
Because things keep getting worse from O'Brien's perspective.
Right.
You think there's no way they're going to fix this. Sisko's going to come back. His desk is gone. Martok's never going to get his Bloodwine back. And yet Nog makes it happen. And it's a testament to the writers and to Aron Eisenberg that we can trust Nog, that, yeah, he's got this covered.
Al Lorenzo's never going to get that desk back. Yep.
That is the greatest character name in Star Trek ever.
So great. It really is so good, especially the way Aron Eisenberg says it.
Yeah, Al Lorenzo.
Al Lorenzo.
So good. All right. Any final comments on treachery, faith, and the Great River, Carl?
I love the O'Brien Must Suffer because I had never thought of that either. But that scene when he's looking so defeated with Rom, when he's like, we're talking about being stuck on the river, and he's like, what river? Like the great material that river.
The river will provide.
It doesn't sink us first.
And the only other thing I'll say is that I love that this is a later DS9 episode showing Nog, but not in a tough or, he's not fighting anybody. It's not a wartime.
Yep.
Because a lot of the Nog stuff later on is wrapped around the Dominion War directly, and this is a great example of something he can do around the war, but not actually be in the war for a change.
We're relying on Ferengi fairy tales. What a great continuum. I cannot do an O'Brien. That was my O'Brien. Yes, it was. Okay, let's go to my round 3 pick. 5 words and a hashtag. We're going to, well, this will give it away. A letter for Cadet Nog, hashtag Red Squad request. And it is Homefront from season 4 of Deep Space Nine. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Red Squad because this is that moment when Sisko dresses him down and says, it's not a request, it's an order. Yes. And he has to give up some info on Red Squad. So, first of all, I love this episode because you get to see Nog as a cadet on Earth. I mean, I remember when that happened, when they're setting up this big 2-part episode, and they get there, and there's Nog. I mean, it's like, are you kidding me? Nog just walked into Sisko's restaurant, and he's eating tube grubs, and he loves being there, and he's like, hey, Nathan, give me my usual. I just love that moment.
Jake! Nog? Captain Sisko, what do you think?
You look good, Cadet.
You think so?
Nog, I thought I was going to see you tomorrow at the academy.
Oh, you are? I'm just here for dinner. Nathan, the usual.
I didn't know you liked Creole food.
I don't. I like tube grubs, and your father is the only person on this planet who can get me live ones.
I've been thinking of adding them to our menu. Of course, I'll have to cook them for our human customers. Serve them with a nice remoulade.
Cook them? What good are tube grubs if they don't wiggle on the way down?
It's this world building and addition of like, man, they are really telling a full Nog story here. So the storyline is that he's struggling to fit in, and he asked Captain to write him a letter to get into Red Squad. Another moment I love because Captain Sisko was just like, yeah, I'm a little busy right now. I mean, the changelings just attacked Earth, but yeah, I'll write you the letter. With this scene, you get the full range of Nog. When he's nervous, that you could tell he's nervous at the beginning that Sisko's asked him to be there to begin with, but then he's excited because he's talking about Red Squad and how he's starting to get in with them a little bit because Jake's giving him some advice, and he talks about how he knows how their names are supposed to be confidential. But then this is that Ferengi moment where it mixes with the Starfleet because he says it's not easy keeping secrets from a Ferengi with that classic Nog grin. And I love that moment. And then Sisko just snaps, Cadet Nog, you are under the mistaken impression that I'm asking you a favor. I want a name and I want it now. Is that understood, Mr. Nog? Oh, so good.
What can I do for you, sir?
It's about Red Squad.
Red Squad? Did you get me in?
Not just yet.
Oh, too bad. Those guys are the best. They're the only people I know who aren't afraid of the Dominion.
Why is that?
I don't know. They're not scared of anything, I guess.
You seem to know them pretty well.
Jake told me I should try to get to know them better. Show them that I'm a good guy. And so far it seems to be working. The truth is, I think they only like me because I know you.
Is that so?
You're kind of their hero. The man at the front line in the war with the Dominion.
I'd like to meet some of these cadets. You think you could introduce me to one of them?
I'm sorry, I can't do that, sir. The names of Red Squad members are supposed to be secret.
But you know who they are.
It's not easy keeping secrets from a Ferengi, but I feel funny telling anyone else. Besides, if they found out I told you who they were, I'd never get in.
Cadet, you are obviously under the mistaken impression that I'm asking a favor. I want a name, and I want it now, and that is in order. Understood, Mr. Nog?
Yes, sir.
Nog is a key plot point, and then he just snaps too, and he takes care of business with Sisko. It's this is that moment for me when you really pinpoint the growth of the character, and you realize, wow, they are making him a Starfleet type person. He's a Ferengi in Starfleet. So as part of my progression, we've got him learning about the opportunities for Starfleet, taking his first step to get in it, and now here he is in Starfleet, and we're actually seeing it, and it's beautiful, and I love it. Carl, what's your take on Homefront?
Oh, I love this pick too. I really like these 2 episodes, and I know for some reason certain people don't care for them as much. I don't know why. But you're absolutely right. I love that scene when Sisko dresses him down. I love the scene earlier when he's talking to Jake, because you find out that, he's actually getting along pretty well at the Academy, despite the fact that he's a Ferengi. Because I remember, because he's talking about how the Red Squad is kind of standoffish, and Jake was like, well, it's probably because you're a Ferengi. And he's like, no, it doesn't have anything to do with that. Which is something, it's kind of a throwaway line that I really appreciate them calling attention to, because that was always a concern, I guess, among the main cast as he went to the Academy. Like, are they ready for Ferengi in Starfleet? And it seems like they are. I love that he hangs out at Joseph Sisko, and that Joseph Sisko is the only person that can get tube grubs for him that are chilled and live. I don't know where he gets them from.
And Sisko's eating, and then he just then he stops eating. He just drops his fork. Yeah.
So no, I'm really glad this made the list. It was on my secondary systems, but
that's awesome.
I'm glad you picked it. Yeah.
This moment jumped into my head right away. Jonathan, what's your take on Nog and Homefront?
An outstanding scene and so well acted. It's really hard to. I would imagine it's really hard to act against Avery Brooks when he's on his A game. And Aron Eisenberg holds his own with him in that scene. It's very well written. The editing, the directing, it's just a great scene. And yeah, who knew that Nog would be the linchpin in the first part of this two-parter?
Mm-hmm.
Just a great scene and an excellent two-parter that, like Carl said, a lot of people don't appreciate. I think it's one of DS9's best, and it's only gotten better, unfortunately, as crazier as the world has gotten.
Well, it's the most prescient. It's the most prescient episode and probably ever in Trek, because literally 10 years later, you've got 9/11 and
yeah. And to go off something that Jonathan just said, that I think it perfectly encapsulates Nog as a character, and then also kind of, at least for me, the trouble in coming up with this list, in that he is the linchpin to the story, but he's in like 4 scenes across 2 episodes.
Right.
But those little scenes are enough to have such an impact on the entire story, which I can't think of many other characters that you could say that about.
Absolutely.
Yep. It's so true. So true. And that's why his character arc is one of the best in Trek history. Okay, let's go to round 2. Carl, what's your number 2 pick for Nog?
Well, I thought we would have to get the Defiant torpedoes ready again, but I was wrong. So my 5 words in a hashtag are just looking for his chance, hashtag something worthwhile, and it's Heart of Stone, season 3, episode 14. This is Nog's first, basically, request to be allowed to go to Starfleet Academy.
Yep.
At the beginning of the episode, and this is also another example of him playing off of Sisko, and in a whole range of ways that he gets to play off of Avery Brooks here, where early on he comes in, he's all smiles, he's doing the awkward handshake all the time to Sisko, and he's giving him this sack full of latinum and saying, I want you to write a recommendation for me to go to the academy. And Sisko does kind of the whole, I'm really busy right now, Nog. Like, are you like, you can't be serious with this? And he starts testing him. He's, sends him to the cargo bay and says, catalog all this stuff, even though they just did it. And, Nog goes above and beyond and does a fantastically efficient job at it. And their first reaction is, well, did he steal anything?
Right.
And, they still don't trust the guy. And it takes that really wonderful scene at the end of the episode when Sisko is just losing his patience with Nog. Like, why do you want to be in Starfleet? And he actually grabs him by the shoulder and he's like, tell me why you want this. And it finally comes out, Nog says, I don't want to end up like my father. And he said that, where he's like, my father doesn't have the lobes for business, but, he didn't do anything about it. And he says, my dad could have been the chief engineer if he'd had the chance to do that. But he chose to be a, quote, good Ferengi instead. And now he's stuck at this bar with his uncle Rom's brother, and has no foreseeable future ahead of him at that point. And, he says, I have my father's hands and my uncle's tenacity. I have something to offer. I just need a chance to prove it. And that's what convinces Sisko to write the letter to sponsor his application, because he's not a citizen of the Federation. And I just absolutely love the arc everybody goes through, because nobody trusts Nog at the beginning.
Yep.
Nog is just kind of glad-handing the whole time. And by the end, Nog says this incredibly personal thing to Sisko, and Sisko completely buys into it to the point where he says, okay, you've convinced me. And the last thing I'll say is that this is the one I was thinking of when I said, there are these episodes like this. I'll just say the A plot is not a good plot. It's not that good at this episode. But then they sneak this incredible B plot into an episode that otherwise I would never really think twice about. So I'm just glad that this is an opportunity to highlight something that probably wouldn't have been highlighted otherwise.
I totally agree. And I thought about picking this as well. I went with facets instead, because these two stories really connect. It's the beginning and then him kind of getting accepted in. So I'm so glad you picked it. And the one thing I will say that I love about this episode, it shows such smart writing, because the bad writers would have fallen into the trope of just having him rip Rom, because he says, I don't want to end up like my father, because but he's not denigrating Rom when he says that. He's saying, I don't want to end up like my father because he's a mechanical genius, and I'm proud of him. And there's things that he could do that he chose not to do because Ferengi society led him down a different path. So such good writing. Love you, Deep Space Nine. That's an amazing episode. It was definitely on my secondary systems.
My father is a mechanical genius. He could have been chief engineer of a starship if he'd had the opportunity. But he went into business like a good Ferengi. The only thing is, he's not a good Ferengi. Not when it comes to acquiring profit. So now, all he has to live for is the slim chance that someday, somehow, he might be able to take over my uncle's bar. Well, I'm not going to make the same mistake. I want to do something with my life. Something worthwhile.
Like joining Starfleet?
I may not have an instinct for business, but I have my father's hands and my uncle's tenacity. I know I've got something to offer. I just need the chance to prove it.
Jonathan, what's your take on Heart of Stone?
It's also on my secondary systems list. That scene at the end where it's not a breakdown, but where he finally opens up to Sisko. It's great writing. It's great acting. Again, it can't have been easy to act against Avery Brooks, but again, Aron Eisenberg shows why he was such a beloved member of the Star Trek family, because he goes toe to toe with probably one of the best actors to ever be on Star Trek, and it's totally believable.
Yep, so true. All right, brilliant. I love this. Jonathan, how about you, man? What's your number 2 pick for Nog?
I think, again, my 5 words and hashtag will give it away, but it's not a duplicate, at least not yet. My 5-word summary is healing, trust, and Sin City. Hashtag if you believed in me. It's only a paper moon.
Love it.
Nice.
All-time classic.
Yeah. We've kind of hinted at this before. Only DS9 could devote an entire hour in their final season to 2 recurring guest characters, and one of them is a hologram.
It's impossible that they did that, and they did.
It's perfection. I appreciated it when I was younger, when I first saw it, and now that I'm older, wiser, I know veterans who've dealt with PTSD. My dad has counseled them. I think he would endorse this episode fully. I know other veterans that reached out to Aron and thanked him for what a great job he did with this episode. If I keep talking about it, I'm going to get a little verklempt, so I'm going to stop there.
No, it's really cool for you to add that extra perspective, Jonathan. Appreciate it. That's awesome, and that's what this episode does so well. From a Star Trek angle, it's amazing. It's interesting. The storytelling, the writing, the development of Nog. But from a real world angle, it's an important episode that we know has helped a lot of people, and that's down to Aron Eisenberg and his performance and the way he brought life to Nog, and it's incredible.
I can't tell you how many times a veteran has come up to me and they would say, that show helped me. It helped me when I came back. It helped me get through. whatever the individual was dealing with. And that's powerful.
If I can get shot, if I can lose my leg, anything can happen to me, Vic. If I stay here, at least I know what the future is going to be like.
You stay here, you're gonna die. Not all at once, but little by little. Eventually, you'll become as hollow as I am.
Carl, what's your take on It's Only a Paper Moon?
This episode it's so good, and I think we'll be talking about it a little bit more in the next round.
All right. I thought there's no way we're getting through this one without a duplicate on it. So let's go to my round 2 pick. And this one is a deep cut. It's definitely not a Nog episode, but it's a moment I always think about for him. And in my progression, it's now Nog. So he was at the Academy, and we see him in Starfleet. Now we see him in Starfleet, and you actually see him putting the work in. And it's amazing. He's a cadet. And I just remember when this was happening, like, wow, Nog is the linchpin of what I think is one of the most beautifully filmed scenes in the history of Star Trek. So let me get to it. 5 words and a hashtag. Engine room, bridge, more speed. Hashtag Nog, the communication hub. And the episode is For the Uniform from season 5 of Deep Space Nine. And it's this moment where the Defiant comes back to the station, and it's all beat up and broken down, but Sisko, we know what mission he's on. He needs to get that ship back out there to get after Eddington, and the communications are down. So O'Brien comes up with the great idea to use Nog and his Ferengi sensibilities to help amplify their wanting communication systems. So he's literally relaying all the comms traffic from engineering up to the bridge and to all the crew, and then every command on the bridge back down to engineering. So he's really kind of in the background relaying all these different commands, but it's just cool. And the way they film this scene and the whole ship, the whole crew working together, it's really, really beautiful Trek. I love it. And I'll highlight this one little moment too, where he's where O'Brien's kind of telling him what's happening, and someone I can't remember says something about, well, if this will be good if things get crazy on the bridge and things are exploding, and Nog's walking away like, "Aye, sir," and he just kind of mouths to himself, "Exploding." And you just know it's that Nog moment, right? It's not just Nog the Starfleet, it's still Nog. And again, that's Aron Eisenberg. I know it's in the script, but for him to deliver that line, "exploding," to himself is so freaking great, and it's why he is so beloved. And I love this moment, so I wanted to highlight it in my pick.
Let me introduce you to your new comm system. Cadet?
Cadet Nog, reporting as ordered, sir.
Stand easy.
With most of the bridge control functions offline, all orders to engineering will have to be relayed. In the interest of clarity, I thought it best that those messages be relayed with one voice. Mr. Academy here. I figured you'd want somebody who could hear you while the bridge is exploding all around you.
Exploding?
We may be going into a combat situation. Do you think you're ready for that, Cadet?
Sir! Yes, sir! Absolutely, sir.
I'm glad to hear it. Report to the bridge.
Aye, sir. Exploding?
So, Carl, what's your take on this one from For the Uniform?
This is great. I had not thought of this moment, but as soon as you mentioned what episode it was, I knew exactly what you were talking about. I love, actually, there's a couple episodes where they use his hearing as a way of basically solving a problem, which I think is great. I think The Darkness and the Light might be another one, but it just reminds me of like the old school submarine movies where you have the people yelling the commands up and down the submarine to each other. And that's just always the vibe I got from that. I just think it's great. I love it.
Yeah, it really gets that feeling. It's super cool. Jonathan, how about you on this scene with Nog and For the Uniform?
Again, like Carl said, not one I had considered, but once you explained it, totally perfect pick. And I really love the old school, relaying commands back and forth feel to it, running the Defiant like a submarine, because they did kind of design it to be like a submarine or have that feel, and that scene really sells that. Great pick. I love it.
Yeah, there's one scene where like the engine room's like questioning something, some order of more power or something, and Sisko's just like, I told him more power. And Nog just says, more power.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
It may not have been more power, but it was something like that. It was so great.
Help! Bring us about. Get us out of here. Engines at full impulse.
Hard to port. Full thrusters. Course 180 Mark 0.
Sir, Chief O'Brien doesn't recommend increasing velocity through the plasma fields.
Objection noted. Now get me more speed!
Engine room, bridge, more speed!
Okay, let's go to round one, and let's get our number one Nog episodes and moments. Carl, how about you, man?
Well, you can probably guess what it is.
Yep.
Yes. So 5 words and a hashtag. The Card's Life deals you. Hashtag back in the game. It's Only a Paper Moon, season 7, episode 10. I'm kind of guilty of picking what people might think of as the obvious pick the last time I was on here as well. But I didn't want this to end up being like the Data episode where somehow Measure of a Man didn't make the list because everyone thought they would pick it.
So I did not pick this because I was hoping you guys would pick it. Right. Obviously, we need to have this episode represented, and we've done that. You guys have come through.
And Jonathan said it best. It's just such a good episode. It's so powerful. The emotions in here. I love how in fine Star Trek tradition, you have a character who's going through a rough time, and he kind of goes back to his roots in a way where he's hiding out in Vic's apartment, but then eventually he says, well, let me check out your books. And he starts doing bookkeeping because he's a Ferengi, and they start planning to build this casino and all this stuff. And it really kind of reminds me a lot of, at the end of season 6, where Ben Sisko is back peeling potatoes and Picard goes back to the vineyard after his experience with the Borg. And you have these, we see what the personal cost of war looks like with these characters. And, he deals with the anger of being considered a hero. He even punches his best friend at one point. All the credit in the world to Aron Eisenberg, but I also have to give a shout out to Jimmy Darren. He is fantastic in this episode too. And that last scene, I can't get through it without getting a little worked up when he finally comes out and they say, are you okay? And he says, no, but I will be. And then gets a hug from Lita, Rom, and even Quark kind of gets in there and everything. It's quintessential Nog. I couldn't not have this on my list.
It's quintessential Deep Space Nine, and it's quintessential
Absolutely.
Star Trek. It's I'm going to get choked up again if I start talking about it again, but I'm really appreciate you calling out Jimmy Darren too on this, because he is incredible in this episode as well as character and performance. Jonathan, any final words on It's Only a Paper Moon?
Just that final line where he knows he's got a long road ahead of him, but he can see the light in the distance.
Right.
Eisenberg really sells it. It's just a phenomenal episode, and one that it could only work on DS9.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In many ways, that is true. Okay, Jonathan, what's your number one Nog episode?
So we're taking it old school with this one. My 5-word summary is also probably going to give it away. Yamak Rapages, stem bolts, dirt. Hashtag NoJ Consortium. Season 1, progress.
I'm so excited that you picked this. I'm especially at number 1. It's so great.
Yes.
And the number of times that you have him with Jake is great. And this is kind of the beginning of that friendship.
Yeah, that's why I made it my number 1, because it's the genesis for all of the character development that Nog is going to go through over the rest of the series. Both parts of the episode are great. I love Kira's scenes with Mullibok, but when I first got this homework assignment, this episode kept popping up in my head repeatedly, so I knew I had to make it my number 1. It's kind of a fun role reversal for us. This early in the series, the Ferengi haven't quite been rehabbed from TNG yet, so it's kind of a fun role reversal where Jake can see, the forest for the trees, but Nog can't. He's just so single-minded focused on Latinum. He can't see the big picture.
Yep.
But then by the time Treachery, Faith, and the Great River comes around, Nog has that big picture view and O'Brien can't see it.
I love that point. This is really this is a good stepping stone for the Ferengi culture to kind of that fix from the TNG representation outside of all the stuff Quark was obviously doing. But yeah, that's a great call. I like that.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite DS9 episodes. I come back to it a lot, and and Cirroc Lofton and Aron Eisenberg's chemistry. It's obvious. It was obvious in earlier episodes, but it makes the episode sing in this one. So
absolutely,
that's cool. Carl, what's your take on Progress and the No-J consortium?
I love this too. It's one of my secondary ones. It's another one of those episodes where I remembered the No-J consortium plot line, but I couldn't for the life of me remember which episode it was in for a while until I did some digging. But
right.
And I love the fact that this is a great Nog episode that would still be a great Nog episode if he had never gone on the journey he goes on. I mean, if he'd never gone to Starfleet Academy.
True.
I still think this would be, because this is really like that last scene when Quark realizes who the No-J consortium is, and the fact that they have this land, and the fact that he actually respects Nog for probably the first time ever in his life. That could have gone off to him becoming a quote unquote good Ferengi if that's where they had chosen to take the character. I'm glad they didn't.
Right.
But it really shows that maybe this guy is more than just, a troublemaker who gets, caught all the time. I think that it really shows that he does have a bit of acumen for this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, as Jonathan pointed out, Jake is the one that really kind of leads him to that point where he's lamenting the fact that he owns dirt. And Jake's like, no, it's land. It's not dirt.
Dirt.
It's dirt.
I really love that point too, that this, even if we didn't have the Nog arc, the amazing Deep Space Nine arc for Nog, this would be still a great Nog episode, even if we never heard from him again. That's cool. It really is true.
I still can't see you. What did you say your name was? I'm getting some kind of subspace interference.
My name's... We're the Nog and... the No-J consortium. And we have 100 gross of self-sealing stem bolts. And we were wondering...
You have my stem bolts? What would you want for them?
We'll let you have them for 5 bars of gold-pressed latinum.
5 bars?
4 bars.
I don't think
3 bars.
If I had any latinum, I'd already have the bolts. Would you consider an exchange?
I would consider 1 bar of latinum.
He doesn't have any latinum. Let's change for something.
I don't want something. I want latinum.
I can't hear you. Can I interest you in a piece of land?
Land is good. For what? It's nothing but dirt.
How much land?
I can let you have 7 tessipes.
7 sounds good. First yamak sauce, then stem bolts, now tessipate. And still no profit.
I'm excited you picked this for a bunch of reasons. And one of those I'll relay in our regeneration cycle. But that is an awesome, awesome pick. Great episode. And it is a comfort food episode for me, too. It's one that I go back to a lot. It's just an easy watch. Very enjoyable.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to my number 1 pick, another deep cut to conclude my kind of theme here. And now we are seeing Nog as a seasoned officer and making the hard choices and the real choices. My 5 words in a hashtag: Cadet Nog impresses upon Garrick, hashtag I won't turn my back on you again. And it is Rocks and Shoals from Deep Space Nine season 6. And it's this moment where Nog is walking with Garrick as they're out kind of surveying this planet that the crew have crashed on in their Jem'Hadar fighter. And Garrick notices that Nog is distinctly lagging behind Garrick. Every time he slows down, Nog slows down. And he stops and basically says, What are you doing? And Nog just says, and this is a great continuation from the episode Empok Nor, which is on my secondary systems, some more great Nog stuff. And that's the episode, of course, where Garrick takes Nog prisoner and threatens his life. And Nog just says, listen, what happened, and I get it that you were under influence, but it happened, and you can either stay in front of me or walk beside me because I'm never turning my back on you again. And Garrick just says, Cadet, there may be hope for you yet. And I love that moment because now here's Nog making that that kind of call that you would if you were the Starfleet officer. And I love this moment for Nog and for Garrick, and I love that episode to say the least. It's top 6 over at our Deep Space Nine Trek ranks. So, Carl, what's your take on Rocks and Shoals and this moment with Nog and Garrick?
This is another great one. It's an episode that I thought of very late in the game, and I didn't get a chance to rewatch it, unfortunately. But I do remember that scene, and I think it's a great example of both of those characters interacting in a way that feels completely normal and natural to and authentic. Where like as you said, you have the history there, recent history, and Garrick's response to that is so Garrick. It's perfect. And again, this is another one of those things that they just couldn't do or wouldn't do on other Star Trek shows. This is something that they would. I mean, for example, when Chief O'Brien was possessed by the creature that claimed to be from the Essex and was assaulting his wife, like nothing was made of that ever again.
Right.
Whereas here, they actually are willing to do continuity and tell a story where that affected him, and he still is. I don't know about friends, but he works with Garrick and is willing to do that, but he's not going to forget this experience anytime soon.
I won't turn my back on you again. Yeah, it's amazing continuity. Obviously, the other shows were kind of built in different ways, but what Ira Steven Behr did with Deep Space Nine is that kind of forced that no one was looking at, and they got away with stuff like this that is impressive for sure in terms of their continuity. Jonathan, what's your take on this Rocks and Shoals pick?
Oh, I'm glad I got included because it's my favorite episode of that Dominion War arc.
Mm-hmm.
And that scene with Nog and Garrick just kept coming up, and it's on my secondary systems list.
That's cool.
Yeah, just great little scene. Their interaction is so authentic, especially the continuity from Empok Nor. Just a great little moment and an otherwise pretty heavy episode.
Yeah, it's funny because I didn't have this in my notes, but I just remember because I didn't rewatch this before. I didn't have time. I watched a bunch of others, but I just realized there's that moment later where they're being held prisoner by the Jem'Hadar, and Nog's just answering questions with his serial number, and at one point Garrick just jumps in and tells the truth, and Nog's like, "What are you doing?" And Kevon, the Vorta, is like, "Yeah, he just saved your life, so don't be too hard on him." Great stuff, great character. I love these lists. It's like we said, it's a celebration of Nog and everything that Aron Eisenberg brought to this amazing character and to Star Trek. So let's rattle off a few more in our secondary systems. Carl, what do you got that we didn't highlight at this point?
Well, I have a few, and most of them we've touched on in some way or another. Some of the other ones that the one that I really wish that just kind of got edged out is the Magnificent Ferengi.
Yeah,
where
for sure.
Nog has to train the other Ferengi, and it just does not go well. And and I also love the moment when they're trying to recruit Nog, and they say, "You could be our strategic operations officer," and he's like, "You mean like Worf?" And that's kind of what gets him on board with the entire outfit is that he like the Worf of the crew. Two other ones. There's a wonderful scene between Quark and Nog in the Siege of AR-558, where it's really more of a Quark scene where he's talking about humans and how they're wonderful people as long as their bellies are full and their holosuites are working. And he's trying to basically convince Nog that he really shouldn't put his lot in with this group of people, and Nog wants nothing to do with it. And he basically rebuffs Quark. I just think that's one in a line of really great observational scenes that the Ferengi have towards the human race that are sprinkled throughout the show. And then the last one that really broke my heart to not include was almost, I would say, the entire episode of In the Cards.
Yes.
It's just such a fun episode, and another great example of the chemistry between Jake and Nog, and especially all the stuff with Dr. Geiger and their reactions to his ludicrous ideas and things.
And I'll say honestly, if I was doing straight episodes and not the moments that I kind of landed on when I was doing my Prime Directive. All three of those would have been on my list. Magnificent Ferengi, The Siege of AR-558, and In the Cards. All just so special, and they're all just great Nog episodes. I love that you highlighted them.
I thought of another one that isn't really an episode, but I really wanted to call attention to it. And it's basically the interviews that Aron Eisenberg does in the What We Left Behind documentary, and the glimpses we get of Captain Nog in that that episode that they spitballed in the writer's room.
Well, I'm glad you brought. I'm going to mention that when I rattle off mine too. So let's end with that. But that's awesome. I'm glad you thought of it as well, Jonathan. How about you, man? Any episodes you want to rattle off?
And I have a few, so my apologies.
More the better.
In addition to the other ones that I mentioned in our picks that I had put on my secondary systems list, I wanted to highlight the Nagus, especially that scene where Jake is teaching Nog how to read.
Great moment.
Oh, yeah.
Just a great little moment. The Siege of AR-558, of course. Nog's injury, plus that scene earlier when Quark's trying to talk some sense into him. What Quark thinks is sense. The Storyteller, another Nog and Jake caper. It's the sweetest and most benign political intrigue that DS9 ever had.
It's really the B story of that is a great episode.
Yeah. In the Cards, of course, and the rigid imperialists of orthodoxy or whatever.
The soulless minions of orthodoxy.
Soulless minions of orthodoxy.
So I love that. I love in that because every time Nog just keeps saying, or we could just tell your father that we're trying to do something nice for him.
Yeah.
And we'd be out of this mess. It's so great.
Yeah. And then my last one, I'm going to cheat. What You Leave Behind with Nog's promotion leading into the documentary.
All right. I love that you guys both thought of that as well. So let's talk about it in a second. I'll rattle off some of mine. I mentioned Empok Nor. That was on mine. One Little Ship we didn't mention yet. I love Nog in that and the work he's trying to do. And then he doesn't actually succeed in his task, but he thinks he does because Dax and O'Brien have maneuvered something. And he's like, yes, I did it. It's so great. Also, I'm going to give a shout. We didn't talk about Little Green Men, so I just need to quickly highlight that one as well. There's probably some others we've missed. I think most of them on my list we've mentioned now. The last one I'll say is let's give a quick shout out to Carr, the Kazon that he played in the Voyager episode Initiations. I actually really enjoy that episode. I think it's kind of just a fun little action adventure story, and it was cool seeing Aaron in a different role one time in Trek. And now let's talk about Season 8 from Deep Space Nine and Captain Nog. My God, I love seeing that. I did the review on this for Trek Core, and the highlight of my review is that, listen, I love the remembrance and I love the celebration of the series, but for me, basically, episode 1 storyboarding of season 8, that's canon in my head. That is.
Oh, absolutely.
I want to see that 1 hour of TV more than anything I could ever imagine. And Nog is the centerpiece of this thing. And not sure if we should talk about the spoilers or not for people who haven't seen it, but it's, maybe we don't. I think everyone who's seen it knows what happens. But it's all predicated on Nog, and it's sad, but it's glorious too. And it shows you how important Nog is that they make that decision and that move to bring everybody back together. It's amazing.
Can we also then kind of do a shout out a little bit that this didn't come up, but in the context of Captain Nog, is that we actually see Captain Nog in The Visitor.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, that's right. We didn't talk about that. That's great. Yes.
Where he's leading one of the missions to try to save Benjamin Sisko and ultimately fails. But
listen, if
we do get Captain Nog in an actual episode, at least.
Is there any doubt in anyone's mind that Jake Sisko went on to write the book Anselm?
I believe he did.
The answer is no. He did go and write it. Everybody knows that, which also means there's a Captain Nog. So
yes,
I love that. I'm glad you thought of that, Jonathan. What was your take on that season 8 stuff?
It just shows how much love and respect the writers had for Deep Space Nine and for Nog, knowing that was the one character that could bring all the others back after 20 years.
Seriously, it's incredible. Yeah. Carl, any final takes on season 8 and Captain Nog?
Just that I would have watched, if they spent 12 hours in that writer's room, I would have watched all 12 hours of them spitballing. Just
absolutely
to see.
I know.
And it struck me just looking at the people that are in that room, just the quality of writers that this show had. And the fact that they just get back on that horse and are immediately able, I mean, I don't know what was edited, but they're able to so deftly go right back into the show. It was incredible to me. And I'm so glad they did that. It was something that you wouldn't have expected to see in a documentary. And I'm just glad that somebody thought that would be something they could do. And I'm glad they pulled it off. Yeah.
I mean, it's special on its own. It's special for all of us Star Trek fans. And now when you put it in the context of, Aron Eisenberg's passing, it's that much more special that we have that. And that's a celebration of him. So amazing. Nog's such an important character in the history of Star Trek. And I'm really glad we were able to do this episode to honor that memory and that memory of Aron Eisenberg and his incredible work and what he gave to us. So let's recap it all in our regeneration cycle now. And we'll talk about some of the stats that emerged and trends that emerged from our picks.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
Okay, Carl, let's start with you. Why don't you recap your 5 picks?
All right, so number 5 is the episode Blaze of Glory. It's the scene with Nog standing up to Martok. Number 4, Nog helps O'Brien with a problem in Treachery, Faith, and the Great River. Number 3 is pretty much the entire episode Valiant. Yep. Number 2, Nog petitions to be admitted to Starfleet Academy in Heart of Stone. And number 1, Nog's recovery following the siege of AR-558 in It's Only a Paper Moon.
Fantastic list. So you had 1 from season 3, 1 from season 5 and season 6, and then 2 from season 7. Jonathan, how about you, man? Why don't you break down your 5?
All right. My number 5 pick was The Ascent from season 5, the Odd Couple B-plot with Jake and Nog. Number 4, The Valiant, Nog's first encounter with bad leadership and what it takes to be a good leader. Number 3, Treachery, Faith, and the Great River. Nog pulls off one of the most convoluted capers you'll ever see, and it works perfectly. Number 2, It's Only a Paper Moon, one of Deep Space Nine's best episodes.
Yeah.
And my number 1 pick was Progress and the No-J Consortium's business dealings.
Fantastic list. So you had 1 from season 1, 5, and 6, and 2 from season 7 as well. So that's a great list. I will break down my 5 here. My number 5 pick was Nog and Jake working on a science project together on the Jem'Hadar in season 2. My number 4 pick was Nog taking his first big steps towards getting into Starfleet in Facets from season 3 of Deep Space Nine. My number 3 pick was Cisco dressing down Nog to give him some Red Squad information in Homefront, and this is Nog actually in Starfleet as a cadet on Earth. And my round 2 pick was from For the Uniform, where Nog is putting his Ferenginess to good use as the communication hub in season 5 of Deep Space Nine there, working in Starfleet as a cadet. And my number 1 was from Rocks and Shoals, where Cadet Nog impresses Garrick with his I Won't Turn My Back on You Again from season 6 of Deep Space Nine to show how much how far he's come in his amazing story arc. So mine was more about moments, and I actually had 1 from season 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 straight through. Didn't even realize that until just now. Okay, so let me break down some stats here. We got some pretty good numbers here. We had 3 duplicates, and this is why I was happy you picked Progress, Jonathan, because we had 1 pick from every season of Deep Space Nine, and I love that fact, and it shows you the strength of this character that every season was represented at least one time from a recurring character. That's absolutely incredible when you stop to think about it. So we had one pick from season 1, season 2, and season 4. We had 2 from season 3. We had 3 each from season 5 and season 6, and season 7 led the way with 4 picks. So that is super cool and a great way to highlight Nog's impact on Trek. And then we talked about this at the beginning, like how many characters he impacted. So here's all the characters basically all the moments that we highlighted in our picks that featured other characters. So there was one with Martok, and there was one with Garrick, and there was one with the whole crew for the uniform pick. And then we had 2 each with Vic Fontaine and O'Brien, 3 with Cisco, and of course Jake led the way with 5 scenes. So just amazing that 6 or 7 characters are highlighted as Nog working with them, and just wanted to highlight more of his impact and everything he brought to this great character, Aron Eisenberg, and in our celebration of Nog. Really, really great conversation, guys. I appreciate it. So let's jump into our temporal causality loop now before we close out the show.
The Enterprise has been caught up in a temporal causality loop, and I suspect that something similar may have happened to you.
And for this week's temporal causality loop, we're going back to episode 64 and our top 5 DS9 underrated, which is appropriate that lined up for this episode when we're celebrating Nog. Of course, Nog wasn't submitted on any of these lists because he is not underrated. We know that. So we had 2 great lists came in with pretty much full 5 words and a hashtag. Well, one has a 5 words and a hashtag and one has description. So I'm going to read off these 2 because I love them. The first was from our buddy, the Borg, Ross Webster at Star Trek 1701. First up was his round 5 pick was for our production design element, and his 5 words and a hashtag was Kamala's prosthetic aesthetic rejected. Hashtag ode to spots, and it's the Trill makeup switch that they made. So his production design element was them switching Kamala's spots to Dax instead of having her have a prosthetic. This is classic Ross list. His underrated character was still all speculation and theory. Hashtag Garrick Wax Vreenak. It's Stephen McHattie in his performance as Vreenak in that famous scene.
It is not a fake.
It's not a fake. His number 3 is his Dabo round was 5 words. Once you have their money, you never give it back. And it's the rules of acquisition, which is so great.
Nice.
So many, so many great moments for that. His character, his underrated character, 5 words and a hashtag. You are the other Cisco. Hashtag series irregular Jake Sisko. So that's cool. That's very appropriate for this episode. And then his number 1 underrated episode, Bread the Arrive, seen earlier. Hashtag away with words. And it's the episode Babel, of course, which is an awesome episode and an awesome, crazy 5 words and a hashtag. Love Ross. All right, and then I love this list that we got from Daniel Martin at Dr. DSM because his number 1 pick is one of my least favorite episodes ever, and that is awesome. So his production design element was the Bajoran militia rank insignia and uniforms, and he wrote in his tweet to us, the level of detail that went into elements likely never visible on screen is kind of staggering. Love that. His underrated performer was John Colicos as Core. Did some of his best work of his career on Deep Space Nine. Season 7's Once More Onto the Breach is a masterpiece. Love that. His Dabo round pick was the Jem'Hadar Alpha subplot from One Little Ship, which is a super cool pick. That was a cool introduction idea for the Jem'Hadar. Number 2, I love that his underrated character, and this is a great throwback to our the Magnificent Ferengi, which did not get picked today. He picked Eliminator Lek as his underrated character.
Oh, nice.
Lek is such a great dark character. I love it.
Great character. And he said, and his description here. He said it was valuable to see a Ferengi break the stereotype and so fun to see a competent warrior among Quark's odd gang, someone who could plausibly kill a Jem'Hadar through skill rather than blind luck. I love that. Super cool. And his number one episode, one that is ranked very low on DS9 Trek Ranks, he says, can there be any debate? It's like he's trolling me, I think. Season 3's Fascination is a hugely fun ensemble episode that could only work on Deep Space Nine like a warm, comforting blanket, endlessly rewatchable. It never fails to make me smile. Okay, Daniel, I'm going to go rewatch Fascination just for you. And, it's too funny. All right, two awesome lists.
Tell me how it is.
I'll let you guys know how my rewatch of Fascination is. All right. So once again, those lists more than enough to get us clear of this week's temporal causality loop. So as always, I want to thank everyone again for all your great responses to Trek Ranks. Keep your list coming to me at TrekRanks or at Enterprise Extra on Twitter so I can retweet them. But we also want to hear from you. So put together your own list of top 5 Nog episodes or any list from our past shows. Call us at the Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527. At 609-512-LLAP. So hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of Trek Ranks. And on the next episode of Trek Ranks, we're going back to the well of my favorite Star Trek topic. That's right. It's our Scenes in Trek series. This will be our 6th version of Scenes in Trek. Thus far, we've done scenes in a turbolift, shuttlecraft, Jeffrey's tube, in a brig, and on location. And in contrast to our scenes on location, our next episode is going to be our top 5 scenes in a cave. That's right. You heard it right. There are a million scenes in Star Trek filmed in a cave, whether it's on location or on the Planet Hell set. You have the entire canvas to choose from. A Star Trek top 5 scene in a cave. Carl and Jonathan, if you had to choose one Star Trek scene in the cave off the top of your head, what would it be? Carl, what do you got, man?
Oh man,
putting you on the spot.
I'm gonna cop out and go with the mind meld scene with the Horta from Devil in the Dark.
Oh, that's such a good one. I haven't thought of that one yet. I haven't really started brainstorming yet.
I immediately went to the Planet Hell stuff and I wait, that's a good, because I couldn't remember which episodes were which in some ways, but definitely that scene.
Dang it, Carl! That's my favorite episode. I'm gonna have to pick that. That's spectacular. Okay, Jonathan. This has become my favorite part of Trek Ranks, is asking the guests to come up with one off the top of their head of our next topic. So, Jonathan, what do you got, man? Scenes in a cave.
Scenes in a cave. The first one that immediately sprang into my head was Chain in Command Part 1, the failed mission to the fake Cardassian base. There's just so many.
Those sneaky metagenic weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rocks and Shoals, the interrogation scene.
Yep, that's a good
one. Oh yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
You're not afraid of bats, are you?
Yeah.
I've got quite a few I can think of off the top of my head, but and for sure those two that you'd mentioned, Jonathan, popped in there, especially that Chain of Command one. That one's very memorable for some reason. So, all right, great job. So before we wrap it up here, obviously a huge thanks to Carl Wonder and Jonathan. Great to have you guys on the show. Any final Trek subspace communications you guys want to relay before we take off, Carl?
No, just if had a great time as always. Thanks for having me back on. And if anyone wants to chat Trek or pretty much anything, hit me up on Twitter at Listening to Film. Love to hear from everybody.
Love it, Jonathan. How about you, man? Hope you enjoyed your Trek Ranks debut.
Oh, this has been so fun. Thanks so much for having me on, and I look forward to sending in more lists in the future.
And thank you guys for that.
And if you want to talk Trek or really anything considered, nerdy or geeky, at Jonfucius online is the easiest way to find me.
Love it. All right. Well, this is normally where we sign off, but I got one more little highlight I want to spring on everybody. Just give one more. We've already talked about it, which is great. I was hoping this would come up naturally, and it did. So just one more shout out to the great work of Aron Eisenberg here. So it's obviously such a sad loss, and the celebration of his work since his passing has been really uplifting, I think, for all of us, and super inspiring. And I know that at some point in the 24th century, there's a chief of operations on Decos Prime. Old Al Lorenzo is posing for a photo right now, a hollow photo behind the desk of another famous Starfleet captain, and that is Officer Captain Nog. There's really no doubt in my mind that happened in the 24th century. So I love the thought of Captain Nog and Al Lorenzo adding him to his collection of
yeah, absolutely.
Nog.
That's a great way to put it.
Nog was a hero, full stop. Love it. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. So, and thanks again, everyone, for engaging with us here on episode 69 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
Don't worry, Chief. I didn't give away the captain's desk. I just loaned it to someone.
Who?
Al Lorenzo.
Who's Al Lorenzo?
The chief of operations on Decos Prime.
And what does he want with the captain's desk?
He wants to take a picture of it.
Why?
He likes to collect hollow photos of himself sitting behind the desks of famous Starfleet captains. Usually he just sneaks into their offices, but with the war on, it's been hard for him to get away.
Well, that makes sense.
He's got quite a collection. Captain De Soto's desk, Captain Picard's.
Okay, fine.
Just want to remind everyone again that the entire TrekRanks catalog is available for you to download and listen to at TrekRanks.com and on your podcast player of choice. Our episodes never get carbon dated, so check out the topics you've missed and maybe just want to listen to again over at TrekRanks.com. And a reminder to check out our friends 5-Year Mission at 5yearmission.net. They're writing a song for every episode of Star Trek, and you won't believe how great their music is. They also have a podcast at the Trek Geeks Network, so seek them out. You won't regret it.
When I look back about what I left behind, all I see are 7 years of joy. I mean, I had such a wonderful time. That 7 years changed my life. It didn't just change my life because I was part of Star Trek. As an actor, I had so much fun. It was such a joy to play that character. Nog was he was so parallel to my own life. And I don't know if you knew that. It was almost because you guys were there, somehow you picked up on who I was and you put that in that character. Because his life was literally parallel, but just amplified, because Nog was amplified as a Ferengi. You know, I went through a kidney transplant at 14. When I was 17, I got into acting. And I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And I made that choice, which is outside the norm of our regular society. Parents are like, oh no, don't go into acting, go be a doctor. And I did it because I fell in love with it. And I thought to myself, I don't know how long I've got. I don't know, I might have 4 years, I might have 10, but I'm gonna fucking go for it. Because I don't know where it's gonna take me, and I wanna know that I at least tried. And I did. And every time you guys call me, I'm like, I'm working. My dream is coming true. And not only was I working, but you guys were giving me great stuff. I had a great cast. I had a great crew. I had great production. Every time I worked, I'm like, oh my God, this is the life I set out for. Nog went through the same path. He went through the same path. He was in something, he had change. He said, I want to go for that. He went for it. People gave him that chance. People gave me a chance. And that's I don't even think I left it behind, because I always carry that love for the show with me wherever I go. And when I get to go to Star Trek conventions and meet the fans, and they say how much they love the show, and then I see their kids that are 10 going, Nog's great. I love Nog. I'm like, man, look at this. I'm part of this. I will forever be a part of this. And no one can take that away from me. So when you ask me what I've left behind, it's hard. I can't think I left anything behind because it's still here with me every day.